just say no. Kids are too smart for that. They want science behind that, why they shouldn't be doing it. These kids could get a hold of this and that it was such high potency. Talk to your kid. Don't sit down at the dining room table and say, now we're going to have a talk. For a safe, healthy, and drug-free community. Watch Step Up to Save Our Children today. Intervening artfully and impactfully at every stage of our kids' development. Because when it comes to our kids, waiting until there's a huge crisis is already too late. Welcome to Step Up to Save Our Children, the podcast for parents, educators, community members, and grandparents who refuse to sit on the sidelines. I'm your host, Denise Mayer, and today we're talking with Kriya Lendzion, who is going to talk to us about what it really looks like to step in early, often, and effectively without pushing the kids away. From the first warning signs to those moments when something just does not feel right, something's off, to navigating full-blown struggles. This conversation is about meeting our kids where they are with the right words, the right timing, and the right approach. Because intervention isn't just about stopping something. It's about guiding, connecting, counseling, and protecting in ways that actually work. So let's get into it right now. My guest is Kriya, and as I said, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Kriya. She emerged from her own personal journey through teen addiction with a fierce dedication to helping young people avoid and transform risky and self-destructive behaviors. 3 decades later, she has served as a school counselor, adolescent addiction therapist, prevention specialist, parenting coach, and consultant, partnering with parents, schools, and community organizations across the globe to help youth thrive. Kriya specializes in coaching adults in the teen whispering skills needed to have impactful conversations about drugs and addictive behaviors with the adolescents in our lives. So welcome, Kriya. So excited to see you today.
Thank you, Denise. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
Well, thank you. There's so much that we as parents, grandparents do not understand about talking to our own children. And I know that this will be a deep dive into how we do it, when we do it, the correct way to do it. So let's just get started. So when we say intervening at every stage, what does that really look like in real time for families?
Yeah, that looks like even when not just waiting until it's a full blown, oh my gosh, does my kid need to go to rehab?
Mm-hmm.
Do they need treatment? This is destroying their lives and creating chaos for all of us. But way earlier down the road when our child is just trying something, they're just experimenting with it, and whether they tell us or we catch them, or discover that they're doing something, that is a powerful, I would say crucial, if we don't want it to go to that other end stage possibility, that we also want to intervene, and it's an opportunity. I love the way that you introduced this whole topic, Denise, because it's not just about stopping this thing in its tracks, but there's a really ripe moment there that can help our child develop some knowledge and some skills that they're going to use forevermore, for the rest of their lives if we actually seize that opportunity.
So what would you say parents most often get wrong? What do they get wrong when they think about intervention?
Yeah, this can be a pretty long list, so the kids
Go
tell
for
me.
it. Go for it.
So, I think one of the main things that we get wrong is doing things to them and for them without them.
Mm.
For one, is we tend to come in and say, "Here's this thing you're doing wrong. Here's the ways that it's going to impact you and how it's not okay, and here's what you need to do instead, and here's the restrictions and the things that we're going to put in place to you to get you to not do that thing." Instead of thinking about how to be collaborative. But we'll talk about that next, like what to do instead. But so we tend to do that. We tend to get come from anger and a bunch of other feelings, because when we find out that our kid is doing something that is risky and dangerous, it's just love, right? I mean, we fiercely love our kids, our grandkids, right? And we would do anything to protect them. So when we find out that they are doing something that could hurt them, all of those instincts pop up, and we can tend to come at them with judgment, with shaming, anger. We feel betrayed, we feel embarrassed, we feel guilty. We can have this whole swirl of feelings that we then just pour onto them into this like in intensity,
Yep,
and none of that backfires.
for sure.
Um, and just being judgmental. Just coming at them, which that can be woven into that last part, but where we're coming from sarcasm or judgment or better, or what are you thinking? All of that, which also
Yeah,
does not
that's
move them
that's my
closer.
favorite.
Yeah,
"What are you thinking?"
that's
And,
what
of
they are.
course, they're not, their brains aren't even
Right,
developed all the way.
right.
I
Yeah.
remember back when my oldest daughter, I found some cigarettes, regular, tobacco cigarettes, we're
Mhm.
talking a long time ago,
Yeah.
up in her room. I was so upset, so I totally understand what you're saying. "Bad mother, what did I do wrong? How could she have
Mhm.
done this?" Oh, I get
Yeah.
that, yeah. Mhm.
Yep. So I think those are the main ones
Mhm.
that we can do.
So when parents step in, like we're talking about, and they
Mhm.
overreact, they're pushing the kids away, I'm guessing.
100%.
Yeah. And in
Yes.
that part, you're not going to ever dive deeper into being able to guide them, like I said in the beginning, and counsel them or whatever, because now they're shut down. They're angry too.
Right. And the whole aim is we want them to, in some cases, repair. There might be some damage that they've done externally. We want them to repair and learn and change. Like
Mhm.
that's the goal, again, because we love the heck out of them. So thinking about, no, we don't just want them to feel bad. We want them to do something with that feel bad. Like
Mhm.
what's the main aim here? So I think that, that first step is really us thinking about, okay, why does this matter to me so much? Before we even consider having a conversation. Why does this matter to me so much? Oh, right, because I love the heck out of this kid. Right? And what is it that I want most here? It's to have them make healthy, safe, responsible choices for the rest of their
Right.
lives. So we have to like root down in that and then keep rooting down in that, as we have those tough conversations.
Yeah. Well, it seems that I've been doing this stuff since about 2018.
Mhm.
And, as I often say, I used to think, "Oh, I gotta, like, talk to the parents that have the high school kids." Well, we've gone down from that to middle school to elementary,
Mhm.
and to be really frank, my grandson told me this morning when I was helping him get on the bus about a child at school that had, brought, one of those little Zyn
Mhm.
pouches and was putting his gum. He's in the 5th grade.
Yeah.
So how early do you sorta think that we need to be talking to these kids?
Yeah. Well, like you said, like, intervening at all stages is I think that we take that even further. It's not just like, oh, when we find that they are using the
Mhm.
thing, but even we know that they're exposed to, they're curious about, they're looking it up online.
Yeah.
Their friends around them are talking about it. Like we see that there's a text conversation where
Mhm.
they're showing curiosity, like they're exposed and they're curious. We want to be back there, ideally, to help them disassemble those messages and have healthy meaning from those messages and help them already figure out, like, okay, where do I stand on this? What are my guidelines for myself around this? How am I going to steer through all of this if I do feel pressures or I'm exposed to, like, we want to catch it way early. So I think, I always say that if our kids are seeing it, then we need to be talking about it, because so if that is kindergarten, and yes, our children, if they're driving in a car through a neighborhood where there are vape shops, then they are seeing messaging for vaping. If they are seeing people out in the community that are vaping or that are drinking, or that, which most kids are growing up with alcohol around them, and they're part of celebrations and they're part of socializing, or they're part of, dad coming home from work, like grumbling about the boss, and then he makes the cocktail, and then he's fun, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
they're growing up wiring messages without us. and their
Right.
own meaning and their own attitudes, and that really turns into their own decisions about these things really, really young. We know that that all is wiring when they are in preschool. So we really wanna
Mhm.
be starting to bring their attention to, like, get ahead of it and disassemble those messages, long before it's like a class in school, you know?
Right. And the
Yeah.
classes in school, not to put any of that down, but often don't keep up with what's going on. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like the drugs
Yeah.
they maybe go over at freshman year in high school might be the old drugs. I mean, old meaning like not the new stuff, not the
Yeah.
kratom, not the, all the things
And
that
it's
were,
not enough.
it's
It's
never
not enough.
enough.
They're saturated in this messaging all around them. It's to
Hmm.
get the one the 1 week a year or the one class or the is
Right.
we have to be overpowering those messages, which means that, yes, the grandparents and the coaches and the not and the parents and that it's and the clergy and
Hmm. Hmm.
that everybody's repeating some of the same messages and they can't escape it, ideally.
Right.
That's
That's
the
true, and I think
yeah.
with the social media and everything that's out there, they're bombarded with all
Mhm.
this information, so much more than they were even, like, 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
we're dealing with all of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't even imagine navigating this world with
Yeah.
kids at this age. I mean, mine are long gone, but my grandchildren aren't, and that's
Right.
why that's why I do this, to try
Yeah.
to educate other grandparents that
Right.
have no idea, absolutely no idea about some of this stuff.
And I do get that question a lot, Denise, particularly for, talking to kids young about like, oh, but are we going to be introducing it? Or, like, again, it's wiring without us. So for us
Mhm,
to say something like, wow, look at all of those bright colors in the window of that store.
mhm, mhm.
That sure would make me think that this was a good idea. What do you think?
Yeah,
What do
and
you feel about it?
typically
Like, sparking it, and so that you're also establishing, "Oh, this is what we do. We talk about all the things."
Mhm,
We're making ourselves, establishing ourselves as trustworthy, safe, accessible people to have all those conversations, and then, yes, it
mhm.
might go completely over their head, and they might not even be on their radar, and so, fine, but you've established yourself as a
It's a
available, trustworthy
source.
person to talk about
Yeah,
it when they do have the questions and they have concerns, which we want them to be doing all the way into young adulthood
mhm.
to consider us that person.
And that's why I always say
Example.
we, meaning the adults in their life,
Mhm.
have to be authentic and honest and correct.
100%.
So that's
Yes.
why I really say people should listen to the podcast, listen to not to me necessarily, but certainly to the experts that are
Yeah.
dealing with this and have dealt with it like you have for your whole life, so that they understand, so they don't say something that can later they come back and say, well, that wasn't right, so then now
Right.
you've lost credibility.
And it
So,
and it takes one time, one cr crappy piece of information because they can Google
mhm.
10 times faster and they're all up in
Mhm.
AI, as they get to a certain age. And so we give them one piece of like erroneous, overdramatic information and they have just dismissed us as
Right.
unreliable sources of information. So it's just
Exactly.
I always say like it's okay to yes, it's constantly changing. Yes, you can plug into some resources, and I suggest you pick a couple that are the ones that put it whether it's, the DEA resource or you pick Operation Parent or, pick one
Mhm. Mhm.
that tends to, keep us all on top of things, and then it's okay to say, "I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is constantly changing, honey. Like, let's look it up together." And that's a
Right.
beautiful moment when you
Mhm.
can also be showing them this is what reliable sources of information are. We're gonna go
Right.
out and look for those together and
Well, and they're exposed to the non-reliable, sources of information, the lobbyists that are pushing certain things, all that kind of stuff. They're gonna, um
influencers, the
right.
companies themselves
The
that
companies themselves, like,
figures out for
oh,
money.
it's
Yeah.
all about the money, that's for sure. Laura
Mhm.
Stack always says that too about, the THC, and,
Yep.
it's just money, money, money driven, and people don't really seem to understand it. I remember when things were looking at, um, uh, legalizing the recreational, THC here in Ohio, and people would come up and I'd say, "Oh, absolutely not. That's the worst idea," whatever. Well, You'd be amazed at how many people would say, "Well, now it'll be regulated and then it'll be what." They don't understand.
Yeah.
And because they're getting those messages as well
Mhm.
from lobbyists and people that are making a fortune out of it off of
Yeah.
it, and so they don't really get it either.
Mhm.
So, what language helps kids open up instead of shutting down?
Yeah, well, for one, we wanna use open questions, open-ended questions, which is kind of like a counseling 101, but instead of saying like, "Did you have a good time at the party? Are your friends vaping? Is anybody getting into this?" Because then they can just very easily like, "Yeah, no, whatever, meh." It's a one word.
The
Meh,
one
by
word,
the
yeah.
way, is a word, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but so we say, so what was cool about it? How did it go? What are you hearing about? What are you feeling about this? What are the what's and the hows, are really going to open up conversation. But I would say the magic bullet of it all, I mean the really is really about empathizing. It's really about
Mhm.
empathizing and validating. So that what that looks like is we have to put ourselves in their place, not as us with fully formed brains and all of our life experience and all the things we listen to and watch and all of that. We have to put ourselves in their place as them, which means the world with their underdeveloped brains that are like that really notice like the shiny stuff is dopamine and belonging, and that's what they notice and that's what they hear. And so when they see the advertisements, when they see the TikTok videos, it's like, "Oh, that would create acceptance, belonging, fun," right?
Mhm.
That all the ads that look like, again, acceptance, belonging, fun, that's what they notice. So it makes sense when they make a statement that is, like what you just said, like, well, legalization is all good. Here's all the goods of why this would be positive. Or,
Mhm.
but weed is being prescribed to people to help with anxiety, depression, bipolar, and really like it's medicine. It's really good. And you want your knee jerk reaction is to be like, don't you know about the psychotic disorders and the brain frying and like, because again, it's love. It's just love and
Mhm.
protectiveness. But we have to sort of we take the calm. It's really important.
Mhm.
Um, and then again, we can say, I can understand why you would think and feel that way.
Mhm.
Because again, if we understand they're oriented to belonging, they want fun, they have a dip in dopamine, they're craving dopamine, right, during this time in their lives, and the messaging that they're getting, that this is the stuff that will bring them all those things they want. We can empathize and say, I get why you would think that. I get why you would feel that way. Um, it doesn't mean we're agreeing.
Right.
Because we can still add in, so after we have validated and said, "I get that," and it makes sense that even when we're catching our kid doing something, we still can, and that could be another part of the conversation, but, about how we can still use this. But so I think that getting them to open up requires them trusting that we are not going to come from judgment. We are going to
Mhm.
try to understand them and where they're coming from and what they think and feel, and that we are going to respect their opinion and viewpoint. Again, that doesn't mean agree, but the more that we respect theirs, the more likely they are to respect ours. So when we say, and here's this thing I heard, and here's this experience I had, and they're more likely to sort of follow us in that direction and let us guide them and influence them if we have respected them first. They have to know that like we will accept their no's before they'll give us a yes, if that makes sense.
Good point. No, that's a good point.
That we're going to respect. So um, I think that is a huge one, and that we're not gonna invalidate what they share with us and what their opinion is.
Yeah, I think sometimes we tend, like, particularly because I do this kind of work and you do too, we know too much. I mean, we know so
Right.
much. There's
Yeah.
so much in my brain, about
Right.
this, whatever, that I don't wanna impart that to the child or, because little snippets. It's kinda like when you first tell the child, explain about, sex
Mhm.
and whatever. You
Yeah.
don't need to give the whole thing. You need to just
Right.
give what they're asking.
So my yeah, it's so one of my favorite guides for this too is the drive-by rule. Is that you have when you're not, and some kids are more like this than others. I mean, some of you might have a kid or a grandkid that is like, I want to sit on the bed and talk about all the things and
Yeah.
look you in the eyes.
Yeah.
But it's most often, particularly with some of our boy kids, I find is that under 5 minutes when you're not looking at each other. So while
Right.
you are walking the dog, you're baking, you're fixing the car, you're doing gardening, whatever. You're doing something else and be like, "Hey, what are you hearing about this?" Or "I heard about this thing and that scared me.
Mhm.
What do you think?" What do you or, you know, so that I think that is another good guideline. The other one is we've got to check our reactions because if they're afraid that we are going to freak out
Mhm.
and all the ways that that can look, like we talked about a minute ago, then
Mhm.
they are not going to open up to us. So we have to not, I call it going FBI. This came from a kid who said, if I
Mhm.
open up to my parents, or I tried it, my mom gave me the invite and I shared the things with her about what's going on around me, or that, yes, I tried the sip of alcohol at the party and there was the complete freak out. One of those things included that she went FBI on me. So she like swung the interrogation lights and was like, who, what, where? I want all the names. I'm going to call all the mamas. I'm going to, and if we're going to throw napalm bomb on their social world and it's going to risk that, they're not going to open up to us. So we have to remember that. I mean, yes, we want to teach them when do you involve an adult, right? Or let them know, like, hey, you can always bounce something off me kind of anonymously, like, hey, I have a friend who, and I will help. I'm here to help you, talk through those confusing things. But otherwise, the important thing here is our loved one, our little nugget of child. And we want to, and us knowing what their inner world, their attitudes, their perspectives, their feelings about it, and their outer world, what they're exposed to, and how
Mhm.
they're steering themselves through it. Like that's what we need to know. So we don't want to shut down, anything that's going to keep them from giving us that information. Because once we have that, when we have that, and only when we have that, can we help them guide themselves through everything that they're exposed to.
And also not only that of what they're going through themselves, but what their peers are going through. We had an incident where a young person took her own life,
Mm,
about 2 weeks ago, and
no.
she was in the 7th grade, out
Oh
here in
God,
our
it's heartbreaking.
community. It was so
Yeah.
terrible. And I was just talking to my grandson this morning, and he was sharing that, he had to be, called into, I guess, the principal's office or whatever to talk with some other children that he was in a group of about a boy that was talking about doing the same thing.
Mm,
So, you it's not only just us we're showing them
yeah.
how to share when it's important, when they can intervene, when they need to. So
Yeah.
it's a ripple effect.
And Denise, I would say so as much as I teach, so I'm in classrooms constantly of all ages from, 5th grade through college
Mhm.
students. And I always give like these anonymous, I got a stack of them from a school I taught at yesterday, and like the anonymous questions. The ones I get the most of are how do I help a friend?
Yeah.
How do I talk to a friend? My friend is
Mhm.
starting to do this thing, or I'm worried about what do I do about that? It's the most commonly answered question. So they want us to, they want help with that.
They do, and I think they really they wanna be loyal, and they don't wanna be a narc, or
Right.
I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many facets to that,
Yeah.
and as I was saying to him this morning, I'm
Yeah.
sure his mother's already talked to him at length, but, when it's something serious like that, you have to tell an adult. You can choose which adult
Right.
you talk to, or whatever, but
Yeah.
somebody this has to be taken out of your lane and put into a
Right.
professional lane
And
in order to save a life.
and that's one of those opportunities, so I think to add to the things that we don't do well is that
Go for it.
we tend to again, like, we talk at them.
Mhm.
So, we want them to have the information, we want them to have the strategies, and so we say, "Here's the deal, here's what you need to know." So, instead of asking them questions about honoring their intelligence and their wisdom and maturity, even if, we're like, "Well, we have more." But with that we launch into our TEDx's instead of,
Mhm.
give them an opportunity to self-reflect and to share. So in that situation you're sharing, is that is a prime moment where our tendency, a lot of us, would be to tell them what to do, right? So they're like, "Oh, yeah, my friend
Mhm.
is, doing this thing, but I don't want to say anything because I don't want them to hate me, be mad at me, right? Is that our grown up brains, of course, we're going to go to like, yeah, but wouldn't you rather they be alive and mad at you than dead? Like, come on.
Yeah.
That urge is, yes, that is true. And we want to have we just rephrase it and we say, well, I get that. I understand why the fact that you care about loyalty, that you want to be a good friend is awesome. So we've just like stroked that a little bit. So they're here still. They're listening, right? And
Right.
then we can say, well, okay. So think about just kind of play that out. How would that feel if they did, do something? Like what would that feel like for you? Give it breath, give them room to come to
Mhm.
it all themselves. Because when they hear it from us, it's just not as impactful. They tune it out more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that is your first knee-jerk reaction is, to jump on
Mhm.
and really, and not be calm, and I think,
Yeah.
we used to always say, "This your 5-mile-per-hour zone," or whatever, when something comes up, you take some breaths,
Mhm.
what would you say to that? To try to keep the parents calm?
Yeah. Well, I think and that's especially if we come back to those situations where not just that they've said this alarming thing of like, "Oh my gosh, you have this attitude where you think that this is everybody's vaping, it's not a big deal." And we're like, right?
Mhm,
But say we've caught our kid or we've discovered that our kid is going there. I mean, again,
mhm.
so hard to stay calm when all of those feelings are coming up is that we really have to collect and like I gave those 2 questions before. Why do I care about this? What do I want here? And then you can sort of like reverse engineer it to like, okay, then what am I going to have to do? How am I going to have to conduct this if I am going to have that impact of having them repair, learn, change, or if I'm going to help them be safe and healthy, responsible? What am I going to need to do? And you have to keep on tapping into that. So I totally suggest, that for one, you wait until you if that's gonna take you a day, an hour or a day but you definitely don't one or both of you are escalated, when the kid's under the influence, those are not the times, right? So being able to establish like, all right, this is because I love you so much, and it's so crucial that you start the sentence and you keep on saying that over and over again. Because I love you so much, this is really important that we talk about this. But I want to make sure so that I can be as helpful to you as possible, that I am in a good place to do that. And right now I have such big feelings because I love you so much that that's getting in my way. I think it's going to get in my way of being able to be helpful. So I need an hour. Or I can see that you are not in a place to talk about this, but because I love you and it's so important, we're going to. So would you rather do this in 2 hours from now or tomorrow morning? And kind of giving that. So I think you can kind of set that up so that both of you are more likely to stay calm. And it's okay to take time out. It's okay to say, like, you know what, and be authentic, like you said in the beginning.
Mhm.
It's again, because I love you. I have so many feelings and I'm really they're coming up, honey.
And I
They're just
think that's
coming up.
great
So I
advice.
need to take a minute and
Yeah,
kind of and right size this here.
yeah.
Or I need to take a minute
Yeah,
so that
I
I
I
can be
think
calm.
that's great advice. Yeah, it probably took me, 50 years to get to that point where I could
Yeah.
figure that out, like, to
Hmm.
think, "This is upsetting, I think I'm gonna need to sleep on it," and
Right.
then get up and deal with it, whatever it is, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's counterproductive for you to scream at them or,
Yeah.
go off the deep end, as we say, moving forward.
Right. And we have to keep just mining down is that why do I care? Right, love. Why do I care? Oh
Mhm.
yeah, love. Like
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
fear and under the fear is love. So we just have to keep reminding ourselves that that's why.
Right. So, we've kind
Yeah.
of been more, I think, sort of talking about the early stages
Yeah.
when you can really impact, and make a difference for the choices that they make. But once they've kind of gone past that and made the choices
Yeah.
that are risky and
Mhm.
will continue to be life changing, like
Mhm.
the school calls, they've caught them doing something or,
Yeah.
whatever. You didn't, you're,
Yeah.
you're completely blindsided. You had no idea. What's the best approach
Mhm.
for something serious, in your
Yeah.
opinion? How to proceed with that?
Yeah. So we've already talked about I like thinking of these C's, like kind of these outlines of and we've already talked about calm and
Mhm.
care. right? We
Right.
want to root down in care and that'll help keep us calm. We want to stay calm. The third C is curiosity, is that
Mm.
it's really important that we need to understand what is going on for our kid.
Mhm.
Again, internally and externally, that is leading to them engaging in this behavior. This is whether it is, vaping or it is sports betting or it is watching porn on the bus or it is,
Mhm.
whatever that thing is that can be addictive and risky and self-destructive. Why are they going there? Because we know that kids don't do anything. The reasons why they make these choices are for normal developmental needs, right? They want to belong and be accepted,
Mhm.
right? They want connection. They want fun and just a rush and excitement and fun. They want to cope with something, to not feel things that they're feeling or think about things that they're feeling, right? They want a sense of like identity and confidence in who they are, right? So they tend to do all these things for reasons that make sense. But we're not going to, if our point is again to help redirect them to be healthy, safe, responsible, to not self-destruct, we have to understand why. So we got to get to the whys. And we can't get to the whys by just grilling and grilling. Again, and like swinging the interrogation lights, we have to still come with that calm and come with that care of like, all right, so I want to understand, what is it that you're trying to get from doing this, or what are you trying to get rid of from doing this?
Right.
What do you want to feel or not feel, or experience or not experience from doing this? Because that without that, we can't make any kind of impact. It's not going to go anywhere except get worse. So we have to understand the why so that then we can go, okay, I understand. I get, yeah, your father and I going through this divorce is really, it's tough for me too.
Mhm.
I understand why you would not want to, why you have been, vaping at night to go to sleep, to turn your brain off, to not have to hear us fighting, to what, like it makes so much sense. And, you know, we're also, we, because of science and love, we're not gonna let you keep doing this because, but we're gonna do everything we can to keep you from that, to help you find some alternatives that will be healthier for you because this is proven to be risky and dangerous and bad for you. And because we love you so much, we're gonna do everything we can while you're on our watch to prevent you from doing this, from hurting
Mhm.
yourself, and hopefully teach you to make good choices forevermore. But that's our job. So we're going to stay here. So calm, care, curious, and then getting collaborative. This is again the part that we talked about that gets missed in the beginning. And
Mhm.
that collaborative part means that we need to we're partnering with them. We're saying, hey, we've got the same goals actually as you, which is for you to be like thriving and happy and healthy out in the world. We want the same thing for you. Right.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
um, but we have to include them in talking about, okay, not just the why are you going there, right? All that curiosity, but also thinking like we reflect back their values. This is a really important point. We tend to impose our values on our
Mhm.
kids in these conversations, whether it is the prevention conversation of like, oh, this is why drugs would be bad for you because of this, and this. And it doesn't stick.
No.
Like it's going to get in the way of your college or you're being a good spouse, you're being a good parent, you're doing it like they care about belonging right now, feeling okay right now. Maybe it's their vanity, whatever. So we need to go through, just like in prevention, we say, hey, how could doing this thing, how could this interfere with these things that you believe in, who you want to be, what you want for yourself, right? That's what's going to stick. We're doing the same thing on this side. So they're using, and we say, okay, well, how I hear that it's helping you that you going to this new school, that you wanted friends, you wanted to fit in and belong. I totally get it, honey. Totally makes sense. And I'm curious what this is doing to your reputation
Mm.
because I know that that matters to you. I know that your sports really matter to you. You're playing lacrosse, you're whatever. Like, how is vaping? I'm curious how vaping is, how does this fit with this thing that you want for yourself? So we've got to get them to, ideally we want it to click. Okay, this is also working against me so that they will be willing to, again, sort of follow you in those next steps of like, all right, so let's now talk about how to provide you with alternatives. So here's the consequences. The consequences are, and I love interventions, using the word interventions instead of consequences. Like we're going to put some interventions in place to help you learn to be healthy, safe, responsible. You know, that looks like so what is so that's how it has to be collaborative because we have to understand why they're using so that then we can start talking about what are we going to replace it with? What are your ideas for that? How can we help with that as your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whatever? How
Mhm,
can what what role can we play in that? Because we're driving and writing the checks most of the time, right? Or
mhm,
what can we how can we help with that? And then the last C is commitment. Is just saying like because we love you so much, we're not letting this go. Like, we're gonna try all these things, and if it's still hard for you, if you're still, kinda challenged by this and it's hard, then we're gonna stay as close as you show us we need to be. That's that's my way of saying, like, it might mean we are amping up supervision, we're taking away some freedoms and privileges, right? But instead of looking at that as punishment, it's like, "Oh, this is just sort of logical, is that you weren't making good choices with this person, or when you were free all on your own without supervision. So now you're going to get more supervision, or that person's going to come to our house instead of you going over there, or right. So we're going to do these things. But
mhm.
if it's not enough, we're gonna again stay as close as you show us we have to be. We're gonna stay committed, and we will keep on riding this out as long as we need to, as far as we need to go.
Yeah, well, I think that's really good advice. I had a young man on a couple podcasts ago, and he's a recovering opioid user. And one of the things he said about this risky behavior that I never thought about is there's a level of excitement about it, being sneaky. And
Yeah.
I never thought about that, with the kids in school, hiding it, figuring
Hmm.
whatever. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Getting by
um,
those vape detectors. That's a great challenge of like, oh yeah, we can do that.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, all of it, all of it. I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
But they had a game out here that the older kids could do, and it had to do with Nerf guns, and they'd run around and you'd tag people and whatever. And for the most part, it was pretty harmless. But I saw the level of excitement, with the kids doing this, and when he said that, I thought, "Wow, I never thought about them being excited that they're,
Yeah.
I'm smarter than the adults, I'm hiding this or,
Yeah.
whatever." So then you have to find some other things that are exciting for them, but
Right.
not
Right.
that.
And that's developmental and explaining and if they don't understand their brains or if we don't
Mhm,
understand their brains, that's a really important thing to understand. And so it's important to know that, starting in 5th grade when they go into like adolescence, all the way into college age, young adulthood, right? They're considered adolescents, but they have a dip in dopamine. So they're
mm,
kind of the grand design is, all right, we're going to get these to be adults out of the cave to go explore the scary world out there, right? I mean, there's a grand design in it. But, unfortunately it can lead to risky, risky behaviors. But so they naturally are walking around craving dopamine. So as
mhm,
the adults in their life, we need to be thinking about, okay, what are some risk managed opportunities we can provide this kid, and that includes like the healthy anxiety of, oh my gosh, I got to get on stage and do this thing, or can I make that basket, or I'm in this competition, and then I slayed it, I did it, right? They need that.
mhm.
They need that, and our culture. That's a whole other discussion, Denise. But like, thanks to these, they
Yeah,
are having less and less experiences
mhm.
to get that healthy dopamine rushes and those challenges. And when parents are just trying to protect their kid from all of the uncomfortable things, it's can be do a disservice because they don't get that rush that they need. And then they seek the rushes from
Other things,
the
right.
endless scrolling, the taking the right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so hard, I think, to be a parent. I'm glad I'm not one right now. Grandparents enough, but parent, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. But to some of them, I think they refer to them as, snowplow parents, and then others as
Yep.
helicopter parents. And
Mhm.
and then of course there's, as I always say, all parents aren't created equal, that's for sure. So some people are just sort of not really connected. They're on their phones
They're disengaged,
24/7
yeah.
at the restaurant or
Mhm.
whatever, and,
Yep.
that's where the kids then, you know, gravitate towards
Yeah.
doing instead of
Yeah.
actually connection and communication, but,
Yep.
I just think I think it's just so hard. There's so much coming at them, at the
Yeah.
kids, and
Yep.
also at the parents.
Yeah.
Every night on the news, it's something else that we have to worry about, if it's a different substance or it's
Right.
it's some other tragedy that has happened with the kids
Yeah.
that I feel like we're
Lots of
always on
fear.
guard. You're
Yeah.
on guard and you're gonna be the parent that has the kid that never does anything. Well, we know that's really, not
Right.
realistic. I mean, come on.
Right. Yeah. And we know, yeah, a couple of things are coming out of what you just said, because I think that when we talk about empathizing, it's really crucial that we empathize and validate with them that they are incredibly overwhelmed too.
Mhm.
We tend as parents to be like, "Well, what do you have to worry about? You don't have to pay bills, you don't have to whatever." Okay. They have an overreactive amygdala, a threat response in their brain. So when they get rejected, broken up with, excluded, which they're is again, when they're plugged in here, they're very aware of all the things they're not part of.
Mhm.
For one, and they're comparing themselves to everybody all the time and all that, is when you put all that in, and that their animal brain registers social rejection or threats as life threatening. So they're sort of
Mhm.
in this state of alert. Never mind the fact that they are getting the same news. They are that we didn't have this. We would plug in the TV. We get the news when we plugged in the TV or saw the newspaper, right? And parents could really easily sort of block your kids
Right.
from some of that stuff, right? No,
Mhm.
we're not
Mhm.
watching TV after 10 o'clock. And then, what's the 10 o'clock news? And you don't. But now they are also like, oh, the polar ice caps are melting, and then there's this war, and then
Mhm.
it's like, so imagine being 13, 15, and overwhelmed with all that stuff without having a coping toolbox yet for it, and overreactive threat responses. They are dealing with so much stress.
Mhm.
So we can, anytime I cannot encourage enough two things. One is that we recognize that with our kids. That's like the homework I'm going to give whoever's listening here is that
Mhm.
you, before the end of the day, just recognize, oh honey, you know what? You've got so much to steer through. It is not, I know it's not easy to be your age in your world right now. Like I really commend, all that you do to get through that. Because even if our kid is going there, there's so many more times they could be, right? They're choosing not to way more than they are
Sure.
for the vast majority. But so whenever we can recognize, like, yeah, life is stressful and hard, instead of invalidate that for them, that I think that gives us trust points as well with all of this stuff. So even when they do make that choice, then we build on that validation with like, yeah, and I understand why you would want to escape and numb and turn this down. you know,
Absolutely, and I
yeah,
think we sorta learned that. We used to babysit the kids a lot, and my husband would have the news on, I'm like, "Turn that off, turn that
yeah,
off." They like sponges.
and yeah,
They
yeah,
soak it all in without the
yeah,
information
yeah,
and the intelligence to sort through it at all.
yeah.
They just hear the scariest parts to it
Right, right.
and then internalize that and then keep talking about it. My one grandson, ay, 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 he's the one that just keeps talking about stuff, and he's gonna have to talk about, um the this take this child that I'm telling you was saying took her own life,
Yeah.
because two of his really good friends go to the
Mm.
school where that little girl was, and they're
Yeah.
gonna be talking about it. They're gonna need help. I mean, that's
Yeah, of
you just
course.
can't. No.
Right,
It
yeah,
and I think that, and
yeah,
I don't know if this is true or not, but, always with the breakup stuff, no matter how young they are, crushes are real. Dr. Collier addressed that a couple
yeah,
podcasts ago, and,
yep,
how important they are to them at that age and then how that can shake out. So, um,
yeah, and
just add all that.
all those moments are ripe opportunities for us to say, "Hey, how are you gonna cope with this? This is really tough
Mhm.
and that's hard. How are you gonna cope with this, and how can I help you find some ways to cope with this
Right.
healthily?" I wanted to just refer to something you said earlier too, is
Mhm.
something you had said also made me think about when you're talking about the snowplow parents and the helicopter parents. I love
Mhm.
the Wonder Woman parent is
Oh,
what I think. I guess 'cause she's my, like, my spirit animal. But
I like it,
if
yeah.
you remember Wonder Woman was in her, like, glass plane, right? She's got the glass
Mhm,
plane up there. I don't know why they didn't, like, see her, flying through the air, but so she's and you wouldn't really know she was there, but if you needed help, she was.
mhm,
Right? The kind of that idea of like, we're not going that far away. We don't want to be missing things, but we also want to be giving our kid room to sort of figure it out, but be there when they need us, right? But we know that both on both spectrums, we know that the parents that are like the free range parents, the free
yeah,
range
I know
kid
those,
parents, like
yeah.
go out and the world will teach you all the things, and I don't want to squash
Mhm.
your spirit, just you be you. Those kids get into the most trouble and youngest. Big shocker, right? And
Yeah,
then
big
but o
shocker.
but over here, the parents that mean really well, and so they're incredibly controlling. They're like, "Here's what to think, here's what to feel, here's what to do about it, here's what," and they are, like, saving their kid from every discomfort, and, "I don't
Mhm,
want you to feel," right? Neither of those kids develop an inner compass to steer themselves through all of this stuff pushing and pulling on them, right? That inner guidance system that they're gonna follow no matter who's watching. So the controlling parents, those kids end up like, "Yeah, I'm fine as long as somebody's telling me what to do." But then they go off the chain. They don't know what to do when
mhm,
they get away from that control, right? So we're really looking for this that the authoritative parenting right in the middle, not
mhm.
authoritarian, not free range, but also not disengaged, not
Right,
neglectful.
balanced.
So the trifecta or the
Mhm,
tripod, the parenting tripod, and again, this applies whether we're creating expectations in our home around substances, both to be preventative and
mhm.
as responses, as we're saying, okay, here's the three parts to it. One is warmth. Again, that comes back to like, this is because we love you.
Love you.
That's it. And so because we love you, here comes two is structure. We have expectations and guidelines around this stuff that is again proven to be harmful because we love you, right? So and we're going to follow through on those. We're going to do what we say we're going to do because we want you to trust us and because we're here to protect you, to form some force fields, but also to help you do this for yourself, which is three, which is support is we
Mhm,
don't expect them to figure it all out on their own and just say, this is bad, don't do it. They need to know how to steer through the media, the the environmental pressures, even the family pressures,
mhm,
right? To engage in this. So we help give them the tools, the knowledge, and then we have that scaffolding that we put up and we as they show that they can handle themselves healthy, safe and responsible around certain things, then we take that scaffolding down a little bit. Okay, you're handling this really well. That's awesome. All right. Yeah, sure. You can go downtown with your friends and I'm going to trust what you're going to do, that you're not going to do anything unhealthy because you're talking to me really openly about, I know
mhm,
that one of those friends is starting to vape and you've told me that how you feel about it and how you turn it down. So you're all good, honey.
mhm.
But, "Oh, you did vape? Okay. Now we're gonna pull a little bit of scaffolding up again."
Mm.
Right? We're gonna get
Yeah.
a little closer, teach you a little more, give you
Mhm.
a little bit more skills to handle situations differently, and then we'll go right? I mean, that's just how so that's what's been shown to help kids turn it around, prevent it from going there and turn it around when
I
they are.
think I think probably one of the most challenging things, is when they go off to college. Because, now you just talk about the super controlling parent. Now you get
Yeah,
to say, now they're going off to
right.
college
And
where
we
you
think
know
we're done.
nothing. Right. You know nothing of what's going on. So that's
Oh,
why it's so important to have established these guidelines and established this relationship and all the things you've talked about before that happens. Otherwise, particularly with boys, they don't communicate so well.
right. Yeah, I can't we could talk about what you just said for a half an hour.
I know.
But because so my son is now 27 and I was a single mom, 100%, but with grandma's involvement, right?
Mhm.
So she was kind of co-parenting, with me to a great extent. And I thought, and I'm the drug lady, right? I do this for a living.
Right.
And I didn't realize how many conversations I did not have with my kid before he went off to college, because I just figured, okay, we got him this far. My whole aim was like, I know the statistics, if they just if they delay use, then they're less
Right.
likely to go there. So I just want him. He didn't touch anything until a cigar on graduation night, and this was a kid that stayed popular. I was like, winning, awesome. Goes to college, and we know those first 6 weeks are actually when the riskiest stuff happens, when the most
Mhm.
tragic things happen, when
Mhm.
the most accidents, the most sexual assaults, the most, things happen in college.
Mhm.
And so I learned quickly when I got those 2 and 3 a.m. phone calls, and I had 3 of them in that first 6-week period, with my kid calling me saying, my roommate is completely thinks he's somebody else and doesn't know where he is because he had, 4 THC gummies. What do we do? Or these 2 girls,
Mhm.
they're passed out, and the last thing both of them said was something about how I only had 1 drink. I don't know why I'm so tired. Like, do you think they got slipped something? What do we do? And my friends are mixing alcohol and painkillers. And what do I? I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't talk about this with him. But the beautiful thing, Denise, and this kind of comes full circle, is that he attributed, the fact that he called me, I mean, yes, I'm the drug lady, and I don't think I would have needed to be a drug expert for him to have made that call, because I had established that I was safe,
Mhm.
and that I wasn't going to judge him, and that I was going to problem solve with him, and that I was going to make that important, right? So,
Right.
he told me when we kind of debriefed, after he was in college, and said, "Well, what? Tell me," because of course I'm starting to write and share this with other parents, and I'm like, "What was it that helped establish that for you? That you called me freshman
Mhm.
year at 3 a.m." And he said it all started in 7th grade. Said it was 7th grade. Can I give the short version of the story?
Mhm.
Um, he said, so in 7th grade, it was our first opportunity to really deep dive into this conversation. It's because he went to a party with a birthday party with his friends. The parents are upstairs. The other 7th graders are downstairs. And he came home from the party, and I asked my open-ended question. And I said, how was the party? He looks all kind of like a little squirmy. I can see he's uncomfortable, right? And I said, well, it looks like something has you a little uncomfortable about that. What happened? And he said, okay, well, I'm going to tell you, but don't do that thing you do. I was like, what's the thing? He goes, where you call all the moms?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, nope, you got my commitment. This is about us. Tell me about it. I got you. And he said, well, somebody busted out a couple beers. Um, and and it was really uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, wow. So, of course, I'm starting to spin. I'm like, oh my God, what did my kid do? What am I going to say? Right. So I was like, okay. I said, wow, I empathized. That sounds like what a tough moment. What were you thinking? What happened for you right then? So he told me how he was like, I know I got the double genes because I taught him that alcoholism runs down, right? He's like, I knew that. I knew that you'd be disappointed in me. I knew, but at the same time, like, I didn't want to say no and like what if they make fun of me for the rest of my life? Because that's their perception, right? At 12. So,
Oh.
and so I empathized. Wow, that's a really tough position to be in.
Mhm.
I'm so curious what you did. And I said, I want you to know that whatever choice you made, we're just going to talk it through because I love you. And I just want to help you again, learn to make healthy choices. So we're just going to use it. So, um, and I'm not gonna be mad. And so he said, well, I said, nah, I'm good. I got the double genes. He said, no, I got the double genes. I'm good. And I was like,
That's
wow,
amazing.
then what happened? And he
Yeah.
said, the kid after him said, no, I'm good. And it's like, okay, now we've got this golden moment to go, how did that feel? So you influenced somebody else to make a good choice.
Right.
And then he talked about how he felt bad that these other kids, and they've been playing together since they were in kindergarten, having total fun without beer. He's like, I felt sad for them that they felt that the ones who said yes felt that they needed to say yes. And it's like, oh my gosh. So that was the moment because we've got positive peer pressure. We've got him feeling good
Mhm.
about himself. We've got a,
Yeah.
a strategy that worked. And he's like, that took me all the way through high school into college. And I knew that it was okay to talk about because anytime I brought anything to you about like, oh my God, there was ketamine at the party in high school, that you went Tell me, what did you do about that? That's
Yeah.
scary." Instead of, "You're
It's
never
such
going there again. You're never hanging out with those people. You're never going to a party." And so I felt, and he still talks to me in his late 20s. There's still stuff. We're not done.
And I think that's just an amazing story. I really
Yeah.
do, and, it leaves the audience with ideas of what to do, how to handle
Awesome.
things, and most importantly, to create this rapport of authenticity,
Mhm.
honesty, love that's
Yep.
gonna get them through the next whatever they need to get through. So, I
Yeah.
can't thank you enough, Kriya, for being
Thank
here
you.
and talking to the audience. I know that they're gonna get a whole lot out of it because
Good.
most parents freak out about how to handle this, how to
Mhm.
talk to their kids, and, how to do, the one kind of parenting, the other kind of parenting, but not the balance that you've described. So I just can't thank you enough. So, well, we're coming up on a hard stop, and, I thank you. I thank you again. It was wonderful
Nice.
talking to you. Thank you so much. It's great and it's informative. This discussion was so wonderful. And it's really helps, I think, not only parents, but grandparents to know when to kind of say something and what not to say. And it's
Mhm.
so important. So if today's conversation challenged you, encouraged you, or gave you even one new way to step in with a child you care about, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with another parent, educator, or friend. These conversations are how we change outcomes together. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Step Up to Save Our Children on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or listen on Spotify so you don't miss the next episode. We are bringing you real tools, real conversations, and real ways to make a difference before it's too late. Remember, intervening isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, being intentional, and being willing to act. So until next time, thank you.